This is Dateline News and Conversation. The show tonight is an update from just a couple of days ago with Natalya from Yerevan, Armenia. There's a lot happening in Armenia today. The news seems to have been all Armenian headlines. Nothing about Israel and Iran, not much about Russia and Ukraine. But the major posts were what's happening in Armenia. Now, to make sure that everybody can understand what's going on, the Prime Minister Nikol Pashinyan came to power with the backing of the British, American, and Israeli intelligence services in their attempts to control the region. And Pashinyan's government has spent the last 4 years cracking down on anyone who opposes it. He openly backs a pro-Western course, aligning himself with the United States and NATO policy. There seems to be a direct link between NATO's plans in the Caucasus and the crackdown on the Armenian Apostolic Church being carried out by Pashinyan. Now, here's a summary of what's been happening. Thousands of people turned out this week and joined a march in support of the detained Russian-Armenian businessman Samvel Karapetian. They were supporting him and his position in defending the Armenian Apostolic Church. He's been arrested. Now, who is he? He's an entrepreneur, a billionaire, very wealthy man who supports the Armenian Church and who has done many, many wonderful things for Armenia, building churches, schools, all kinds of things that are supporting the people of Armenia. Now, in recent weeks, this Pashinyan repeatedly has been attacking the Armenian Apostolic Church. Goes back to the 1st century. And the Armenian Apostolic Church has been the official religion of Armenia. And he's been accusing it of corruption and other violations. He even accused the Catholicos, who is the equivalent of the Pope in the Vatican in Rome. He accused him of sexual crimes against his vow of celibacy. Now, today, Archbishop Mikhail Ajapanyan has been targeted for arrest by Armenia's National Security Service. His car, his motorcade, was blocked by what looked like hundreds of people not wanting to let him go to meet with the Investigative Committee. However, he did go, and I understand that he's present there now having conversations with them. It remains to be seen whether he'll be arrested. Now, what it seems like to me, and Natalya will update us on this, that Pashinyan is falling out of line with the Armenian people and their values. He's been sacrificing Armenia's independence, sovereignty, and territory. You'll remember we reported extensively on Nagorno-Karabakh that he gave up to Azerbaijan. He seems to be using his power to control all spheres of life in the country, including the judiciary, the army, and now he's attacking the church. This is a brief update with Natalya Sagyan from Yerevan on what is happening today. Natalya, welcome back to the show.
And thank you for this opportunity.
Well, Natalya, I want you to, based on my brief introduction, I want you to share with our audience what really is happening today. And I want especially to try to understand what's going on in some of the videos that I'm going to show, where it looks like hundreds, maybe thousands of people are rising up in support of the church and the Archbishop. So, what is happening today?
Yes, in fact, you are right. The thing is that there's a big difference between just posting ridiculous accusations on Facebook and going after people, after archbishops of the Armenian Apostolic Church. So when it was only at the level of making ridiculous posts on Facebook, people were, well, not very serious about it. But today, Pashinyan crossed, I think, probably the last red line, which in fact turned out to be an unexpected failure for him. Why was it a failure? Because this Archbishop Mikhail Ajapanyan, he is the Archbishop of the head of the Shirak region representation of Armenian Church. So he's not just an Archbishop. So they went after him to his residency in Gyumri, in Shirak region, and there they were informed that he is not home at that moment because he was called for a general meeting in the city of Vagharshapat, where Echmiadzin, the mother see of Apostolic Church, is located. So immediately, the National Security Service forces of all kinds, including the special forces, you know, the men in black uniform and masks on their heads, and then another special unit with camouflage outfit with masks on their heads. All these people, accompanied with huge police forces, like numerous buses and buses of police forces of all sorts, urged to Echmiadzin and tried to storm the general building of the Mother See of Armenian Apostolic Church, looking for one archbishop. That was probably an unexpected black swan event for Pashinyan, because he didn't expect people to react so rapidly. Even though the police locked all the roads leading to town of Vagharshapat, thinking that to prevent people from going there and protecting the Mother Sea, but people in the town of Vagharshapat self-mobilized immediately. So there were thousands of people. Many of them went online saying that we understand that people will not be able to reach. So if it's not us, then who? We live here. Nobody can stop us from protecting the Mother Sea of Armenian Apostolic Church. And obviously then the police understood that this effort is useless, and they opened the roads, and people from Shirak region actually followed the National Security Service forces, followed them to Vagharshapat in order to protect their archbishop. So it was really crowded. Of course, there were some very ugly scenes when police was pushing and pulling civilians, but then Archbishop and the Catholicos of all Armenians came out, met with the people and with the police, and said, you don't need to do any violence. I will come with you. I'm not afraid. If I'm invited for a conversation, why didn't you just come after me a few days earlier? Because the investigation started on the 17th. I mean, obviously, they could have arrested him quietly without making a show. But they probably decided to make a show, and they faced an unexpected result. This is why I'm calling it rather a black swan event for Pashinyan, because he thought that people are reluctant and laid back, and because they're desensibilized after all the losses that Armenia faced during this 5 years after the 44-day war. He probably thought that people will be indifferent. But what they faced today was a big failure for them, because they were not able to chain the archbishop and to put him into the car. And he said, I'm coming, but I will walk all the way from Vagharshapat to Yerevan. I will walk and I will not sit in your car.
Ողջույն ով քրիստոնյա է, ով որ քրիստոնյա չէ, ողջույն չի։ Քրիստոնյաներին ողջույն։
But then obviously he's an old man. He got tired at some point, and after walking 4 or 5 kilometers, and he said, okay, I will take a car. And people who were accompanying him, who followed him, civilians, surrounded the car and said that we're not sure where are they going to take you. So if you want to go by car, take one of our cars. Don't take their car, because we're not sure where these law enforcement officers will take you. They may take you somewhere where we will not be able to follow you, and we will not know where you are. So obviously the law enforcement understood that they failed there too. So the Archbishop was brought to the National Investigative Commission in Yerevan, and he entered the building, and he's there now. People are now gathering around that building. There are lots of people now, mass media, everybody is present. And today the opposition in the parliament already unitedly decided that they will all sign under the petition to impeach Pashinyan. At the moment, they have 36 votes. If they finish up the procedure today, they will have necessary amount of votes for this impeachment issue to be entered into the agenda of the parliament. But in order to succeed with this impeachment, they need 54 votes. So all opposition is joining in. Apparently they have to, or the opposition, 2 fractions of opposition have 30 34 votes. They need 36. Now they have two more from Nikol Pashinyan's party joining in, and they have 34 and this 36, and this petition can enter the agenda. In order to impeach Pashinyan, they will need 54. So they have 36, and the remaining they will have to obtain from Pashinyan's party. Obviously, there is an atmosphere of fear inside this. The Pashinyan's party is called social agreement, which is a joke, of course. If you look at the name of his party and what he's doing, there's no social agreement at all. But I'm sure that there are decent people there too who will not stand this behavior. So I think that we are entering into an impeachment procedure, and we will see how it ends. And I'm hoping that the opposition started this impeachment process because they have done their homework with Pashinyan's party. Otherwise, it would be a political failure for them to start the impeachment process without having at least, any positive reactions from Pashinyan's parliament members.
Yeah, I'd like to point out that you're not just some citizen activist, but you are a member of one of those opposition parties. Am I correct?
Yes, we're not presented in the parliament, but we are in a opposition to Pashinyan, but not presented in the parliament.
Okay. Wow, that's a surprise for me that that you're already at the point of wanting to impeach Pashinyan. Now, I had some questions I wanted to ask. He's been in for 4 years. How long is his term? When would the next election be?
He's in the office since 2018, so 7 years. He was elected in 2018 once. Well, there were parliamentary elections, and then the parliament elected him as a prime minister. Then in 2021, he announced an ex-term elections because the term is 4 years. No, 5 years. So he announced the next term elections, and he was elected again in 2021. Next elections are planned for 2026, which might be a problem, because I want to mention particularly, since you said that you were right about mentioning that Pashinyan was brought to power, and what he now is doing is a collective effort of Great Britain, US, NATO, and the European Union. How is NATO involved here? NATO is involved through Turkey, because Turkey is a member state of NATO, and what NATO, and not only NATO, but also the European Union and the so-called collective West, wants to get Turkey in control of the South Caucasus and to appoint Turkey as a watchman in the South Caucasus, thus removing Russia from the region. Okay, so what NATO is trying to do is to get Turkey to gain control over South Caucasus. Because Turkey is the only country presented in the region which is a member of NATO. So what they want to do is to get Turkey to control South Caucasus, thus pushing Russia out of the region. And to do that, they will definitely need to have borders open between Armenia and Turkey. But Turkey is a very experienced player, so they have their preconditions to open the border. And one of their preconditions was to limit the authority of Armenian Church and to destroy it as much as possible, to shatter its positions as much as possible. The first request that they had, first precondition, was to interrupt connections between Armenia and diaspora. This is pretty much achieved already, because Pashinyan led to deterioration of relations with diaspora, like significant. And now they're working on Armenian Church. So these attacks against different representatives of Armenian Church became more severe when Pashinyan returned from Istanbul after meeting Erdogan on the 20th of June.
Okay, so I have to ask you this. Armenia used to be in Russia's sphere of influence. And everybody knows right now that Russia's got its hands full with its own special military operation. And now trying to mediate in the Israeli-Iran war. He's been accused for being more favorable to Israel, but on the other hand, Iran and Russia have signed a very important alliance agreement. And so Russia's got its hands full, but what is Russia's influence, if there is any more, in Armenia and in this conflict that is brewing right now?
Obviously, Russia maintains its influence in Armenia at the moment, even though all other players are trying to limit its influence here. As you know, we have a Russian military base here, located in the second large city of Armenia, Gyumri, which is close to border with Turkey. And the existence of this Russian military base was predominantly conditioned by absence of relations between Armenia and Turkey, and a constant threat which exists from Turkey towards Armenia. So imagine what happens if the border between Armenia and Turkey gets open. Obviously, all spokesmen and speaking heads financed by the West will start pushing in an idea that there is no threat anymore. So we can invite Russian military base out. We don't need them. We're friends with Turkey now. It is obvious who is interested in it.
Okay. Thank you for that. Now, I have a couple of other questions that I think are important. We've talked about previously, the Armenian Apostolic Church is the official state religion. It's goes back to the 1st century AD in Armenia, when apostles came there and preached the gospel of Jesus the Christ. And I've been to many of these very ancient churches in Armenia. They're absolutely amazing. And the people that I saw there appeared to be very, very devout. I'd like to ask you, in your opinion, now there's a couple of million people left in Armenia. Could we describe them as true believers, as religious people who observe the holidays and the feast, or are they just Armenian apostolic believers?
It's hard to say, because there is an official statistics, but statistics doesn't show the real picture. Obviously, it's hard to say if a person is a true believer or not, but majority of Armenians respectfully celebrate special days of Armenian Apostolic Church. Obviously, we all celebrate Easter and Christmas, which sometimes coincide with Russian Orthodox Church. And most of Armenians, even if they're not a true believers, but they definitely do respect the role of Armenian Apostolic Church for the Armenian nation. And this is why what we saw today is a very characteristic for Armenians. I'm sure that if we ask people who were there today, some of them will say that, no, I'm an atheist or I'm an agnostic, but I'm here to protect Armenian Church because it's a symbol of my nation. It's a symbol of my national identity, and I will not anyone to do what Pashinyan is doing.
Yeah, I appreciate that, because I think even here in Russia, most people that I've met would give the same answer that you just gave. Whether they're atheists or they're agnostics, they all stress the importance of the influence of the Russian Orthodox Church in their history, their culture, preserving their language, and preserving traditional family values. So I'm wondering, Natalya, if this Black Swan event, as you called it, has backfired enough on Pashinyan to have rallied the majority of Armenians to rise up in opposition to him. And even if impeachment doesn't happen, he's up for re-election next year. Do you think the people will forget what's happening?
Since we live in a world where news are only actual for 24 hours, and then people easily forget things, like there's another scandal next day, and then the next day, and people forget what happened 2 days ago. Obviously, if Pashinyan sticks to the idea of elections over the next year, he might be able to manipulate the opinion of the public opinion so that people forget what happened today. But when I monitor what was happening today and how people reacted, not only on social media, but also in the street, in public transport, I go to the office by metro and return by metro, and I hear people talking to each other. I watch them scroll their media and how they react. This is something that I haven't seen in the last 3-4 years. I think that there is a spark, and if the opposition manages its information campaign in a correct way, this spark may become a flame. So we will have to watch the situation, how it develops, and just hope for the best.
So here's maybe my last question. I'm not sure. How strongly do you think the Armenian Apostolic Church will fight this? And I mean, you know, they've got the pulpit. They have media. I can't believe they'll let this die. I think people must be feeling this groundswell. I think the church realizes it's a direct attack on its very existence, not just its influence, but its very existence. We've seen what's happened in Ukraine with the attacks on the Orthodox churches there. They've imprisoned the priest and the archbishops. They've taken over the church buildings, taken out artifacts and icons that are very valuable pieces of art. I have to imagine that the church is not going to let this die. What is your thought?
I'll have to agree with you, yes, because I think that the church has maintained its, preserved position for quite a long time in order not to generate even more split up in the society. But today, they face the reality that there are indeed there are no red lines for Pashinyan. So I'm thinking that they will now pull themselves together and start combating and defending their positions. And they can only do it through people, because the real support they have is the people of Armenia and the diaspora. So I will be monitoring, and we will see what happens, because now when Archbishop Ajapanyan is still inside the investigative committee and people are there, and we will see what the news brings us, and we will see what tomorrow morning brings us, because the information was that there were several other names in the list that they want to arrest, and some of them also are bishops and archbishops of Armenian Church, and some of them are just activists, followers of the movement that started last year with Archbishop Bagrat. I think we did a show about it last year when they surrendered several villages in Tavush region to Azerbaijan. There were in the list, there are just people who were supporters, active supporters, because what they're doing now is they're scrolling Facebook feed lines of everybody they can put their hands on to see what people posted last year, what they posted this year. So we will see.
You mentioned the diaspora, and we talked about that a couple of days ago. The population of Armenia, if I'm not mistaken, is like just 2 million. but the
2.9.
2.9, so 3 million people, but the diaspora numbers something like 10, 11 million.
Yes.
Have you seen any response from the diaspora? Have any of them weighed in, whether it be social media or whatever?
Yes, significant response from the US, from Canada, Australia, Lebanon, Jordan, and the Middle East countries where Armenian diaspora is really strongly represented and very respected. All of them reacted today during the day, and definitely people were outraged by this behavior.
That's good news. So, from my perspective, the 3 million people in Armenia have got to know that they've got the support of their countrymen who have been scattered throughout the world. I want to thank you for giving me this report today. Thank you so much again, Natalya.
Thank you.